All right, everyone, this is the last webinar of the year. Woohoo! We're going to end on a high and we're going to be looking at neuropsychology, the future, and how we might support, treat, and diagnose neurodiversity going forward. We are going to have a bit of a hyper focus on ADHD in the second part, but the reason why we're not doing that to begin with is we need to set a little bit of groundwork. A lot of this stuff can actually be applied to, say, autism as well. Maybe not so much dyslexia and dyspraxia, but it's just the case examples today are more ADHD focused. Now, here's a picture of me, unfortunately not wearing a Santa suit, to let you know that my background is in neuroscience as well as neurodivergent myself, and a good lover of VR. So you're in good, capable hands. Here's our lovely team. Today we've got myself and April, one of the last few remaining EI staff who haven't ran away for the holidays. I did run away, but I couldn't cancel today. I know, sweetheart. The last webinar we have online is Gene Editing, the Future of Neurodiversity. This was looking at a really controversial but fascinating subject where if we could cut around our gene and edit our DNA, would we want to get rid of neurodivergence? And if we did, would that destroy neurodiversity? And if we weren't to go full on genetics, could it still support people and make their lives easier? Today, we're going to be taking it back a bit, less controversial, and looking at how we might be able to use future technology to support people, not cure people, because that's messy. No one wants that. But still, a very interesting subject. VR and ADHD. VR, we did last week. We looked at VR in mental health. Why? Because mental health and VR, there's a lot more data. There's a lot more research and examples. When it comes to neurodivergence, we're scraping the barrel a little bit, but there is research and there are things that have been done and there are studies that are undergoing at this moment. So if any of you have ADHD and have a VR, don't get excited just yet. Don't worry about it. But it's something that I think will be developing. If successful, today we're going to be looking at VR in brain research. We're going to be studying using VR, similar to what we did last week, but expanding upon it, looking at more in neurodevelopmental conditions. And we're going to be looking at VR's role in brain science with a focus on ADHD. That's the plan. Let's see how we get on. Now, a couple of new terms, just so we're all up to speed. Some of you may have never heard of these before. We've got construct validity. Now, this is a word which I'm not expecting people to know. All it means is how accurate a test is in measuring its target. Going to be a real key one for VR because at the moment, the way we support and diagnose neurodevelopmental conditions like ADHD is like, ADHD, we have some ideas, but there's a lot of wiggle room for interpretation. This potentially could make it a lot more concrete. VR is just a tech for simulating the world in 3D. So you've got these goggles on and you can essentially look any way around you. It's more immersive, which just means feels more real. Haptic feedback. This is when you're like playing a game console, you just shoot someone in the head and your thing starts vibrating. Haptic feedback. Again, it creates a more immersive view. Or actually, I should just done when your phone vibrates. That would have been a better one. But yeah, there's that type of thing. Or when you're ordering food and it vibrates. We got spatial working memory. This is handling space-related memory, navigating three-dimensional space. Executive functions, which is classic when it comes to ADHD. This is skills for planning and solving problems. So you'll notice that some problems are easier to solve with those who are neurodivergent and some problems will be more challenging. And it's normally in this area where we're looking at kind of deficits or difficulties. The last one is a virtual classroom. This is a VR setup to test attention in a real classroom. This is going to be like really useful for ADHD, I reckon, because we often know that students and children and adults struggle with school and education. What if we could test it beforehand? So I think that's got some interesting stuff to it. Again, we've got to set the foundations before we go right into the VR-y stuff. First of all, what is neuropsychology? Any ideas? Put it in if you don't have a guess. This is going to be important to understanding why VR, may be useful for those with ADHD. Oh, Vicky says, would this be a more sophisticated version of the QB test? Yeah, so I would say it would complement it and arguably give it more validity. Yeah, we'll go on that a little bit, whether or not you think it will be beneficial or not. But the idea is yes. Okay, psychology related to neuroscience. Ding, ding. Relationship between the brain and behavior. Yes, spot on. Intersection between neuro and psych. I researched this. Yes, that is correct. Study of the nervous system. Partially, but more. I would say probably the best one. Actually, oh no, you'll get to vote on the best one. Actually, yeah, go on, vote which one you think is the best before I tell you. But this is going to be important because, as we know, to diagnose neurodivergent conditions, you have to use psychology because it's something that you observe and then you write down. Neuroscience can be like scans going under the hood. We can't quite do that yet when it comes to, say, ADHD or autism. But when we combine the two, that is when we might be able to get a more accurate answer. So it isn't about necessarily replacing one, it's about using it in unison. All right, relationship between the brain and behavior, study the nervous system. I think, yeah, I like that one. I was too slow. Mine was psychology related to brain functions. Yeah, I think most of you are spot on, to be honest. Now, here is the definition from Katie Hamilton. She says, neuropsychology studies the relationship between the brain and behavior, cognition, mood, and personality. We study how injury or disease that affects the brain will change those domains. Now, I would say the last part, I don't really think relates to neurodivergence because I don't see it as like a disease or injury, but in science, you might use those terms. But the first part, I think, is accurate. Looking at what does ADHD affect? Mood, personality, cognition, relationship, and this is everything we're talking about. This image is quite good. So you've got neurology, like neuroscience, psychiatry, and psychology. And when all of those kind of combined, you get neuropsychology. And this is going to be very useful to understanding what happens next. Now, a quick history, just to bring everyone up to the same level. In the ancient times, brain as thought/feeling center. Even back in the day, we thought this was useful. We did a webinar on the history of neuroscience and how the Egyptians were like, maybe it's useless. No, they still thought the brain was useful. They just didn't think it was integral to who you are. They thought the heart was. But we've always thought the brain was important. In the 19th century, we were discovering the functions. Wait a second, that squishy bit to the left in the center, that's going to be quite useful in order for processing. So we were starting to learn a lot more. Then in the 20th century, we did brain tests and injury research. So now we're looking at what happens if something isn't going quite to plan. And then bringing it up to modern time, we did proved brain imagery. So finally, we no longer have to cut the brain open in order to see it. We can go and get a nice little picture and say, yeah, right there, that we probably need to do something about that. So we've come a long way in a short amount of time, really. And now we're looking at advanced imagery and research, even AI. So artificial intelligence is going to be amazing when it comes to looking at brain scans. At the moment, there still is an element of art to it. You look at a picture and you're like, all right, that looks, you don't know, but we'll be able to be more definitive soon because we're going to have like thousands and thousands of brain scans and the AI will be able to say what is likely ADHD, what is likely a disorder. That is the way we are heading at the moment. At the moment, the most recent test was 90% accurate when it came to diagnosing autism, I believe. And I could only imagine that ADHD would be of a similar, but we're not there to like publicly roll it out just yet. Okay, quick true or false here. First one, brain functions are in specific areas, sight, vision, whatever. Brain functions are spread across areas. Oh, Sam says it's still far to map the brain functions accurately. Yeah, we haven't done it yet, but I think we're not as far away as we might think. The brain is ridiculously complicated and humans can't do it, but could computers? Maybe. We're able to map the genome, which took forever, and now we can do it really easy. So it's like a snowball. It gets faster and faster. All right, let's have a little look because we've got some mixed opinions here. So the brain functions are in specific areas. No, Now, before you like, yeah, they are, there is a focal area, but all areas are in use. So sometimes people think when we are processing information, it's only one part, one temple that is actively involved. The whole brain is being used. It's not that we're only using 10% of our brain. No, we're using all the brain. And that is, again, quite useful to know, because when we have been studying, we have been looking in a particular location. And quite often, with autism at least, when you look at what is the origins of autism, it isn't like one gene. That autistic gene, it is lots and lots of common genes that all have lots and lots of things potentially wrong or not quite as we imagined. And it is that combined, which is the autism. That's why it's so difficult to pinpoint, or it's impossible to pinpoint autism. So that's what we mean. Yeah, and you know what? A little bit of a trick question. So if you get that wrong, don't feel too bad. Neuropsychological Evaluation. And this is how we do a little bit of studying. How do we even collect this data? So we'll be looking at thinking, how people process the world around them, how people move and interact with it. We'll be looking at their behaviour, their language, their problem skills. And this is how you can imagine when you've got psychology and neuroscience combined, you take a lot of data and you evaluate it as a whole rather than just psychology or just neuroscience. Now, what do you think is the best use? And I promise you, we're building up to the VR stuff, but this sets a really good foundation. So we got, is the best use of these type of assessments for spotting issues, making recovery plans, knowing weak skills, planning help for recovery, or checking treatment success? So we've got a lot of different potential areas. Woohoo! Checking treatment success. Interesting. Now, I would say they all have their benefits and their cons, but quite often the assessments are quite good at, I would say, recovery plans, not that good at spotting issues, to be honest. Help for recovery. All right, let's do another one. What do you think is the biggest issues with neuropsych evaluations? Where is their shortcomings at the moment? Do they not reflect real life because just someone writing on a form? Can they miss small problems? Cultural risk bias. Someone might have preconceived ideas about someone before they've even really met them. Usually long and expensive, so they do take forever. Who's on the waiting list here? Look, they're a nightmare. And other things can change results. There's a lot of other factors. They all won. How is that possible? I selected all of them. Now, I would say these are absolutely correct, to be honest. The way we do assessments, they are not accurate to real life. I remember when I got diagnosed, they literally put me in a room, watched me play around for toys for an hour and wrote down, that isn't me in real life. Small problems, they aren't detailed enough. And that's why people often get diagnosed, misdiagnosed, not a full picture, only telling one side of the story. It's why girls are less likely to get diagnosed than males. We know things like racism, sexism, all those isms are embedded into humans, which sucks, but it does mean that we'll never be completely bias-free. Their assessments they take forever. Most people are saying 3-4 years now to get an assessment. And there are many other factors which are flaws. It's a mixed bag. There's good parts of it and bad parts. But that's all we've had to work with at the moment. Now this is the exciting part. Why VR could transform brain/behavior studies and treatments. So we talked about why conventional methods are good and bad, but why might VR, virtual reality, help us? Now, feel free to if you have no idea, just put anything, but get creative, because I think the possibilities really are endless. Okay, we've got simulations, trick brains. Yes, we do know that even if something has terrible graphics, our brain still believes it. It's why we can watch cartoons, which are completely not realistic to life, but we still buy into it. Cheaper, yes. These headsets, don't get me wrong, they're not cheap, but they are a lot cheaper than paying a professional. They can also be done in the home. More fun, absolutely. A lot of times when people get assessments or treatment, they are traumatic. We've got personable, yes. Increased access, more engaging, reduces anxiety to practice, absolutely. Wider scope of environments. Okay, neuroplasticity. Okay, all of these things, yes. So we all agree there's a lot of potential in using VR. Feels less medical, brilliant. Accurate. Yeah, I would say so. Now, here are just some of the benefits, and what I want you to do is rank them in terms of how good do you think they are. So if something is, I don't know, tailored recovery, hell yeah, rank that as a number 1. If you're like mimics real life, meh, put it as a 6. Now, I think all of these are interesting, but maybe some have more benefits than others. Okay, oh, here we are. So coming in at number 1, enables remote care. Oh, okay. Tailored recovery. Yes. Tailored support. Oh, no. Okay. Too much changing. Oh, they look like head to me. All right, let's just go for it. Tailored recovery. This is when the support you receive is tailored to you as an individual. And let's face it, when it comes to conditions like ADHD, it is so individual, and quite often they give us a blanket approach to take those pills, see if they work, take that sort of mindfulness training. It's not tailored enough. Enable remote care. A lot of people live very far from medical services. Also, the waiting lists are horrendous and people have extreme anxiety. Being able to do it from home, surely it's a win for everyone. Increase patient interests. If I told you, hey, do you want to play a game for a few days? Or do you want me to poke and prod you and write down on a notepad? I think you know which one you'd pick. Control factors. When you are doing reports, there are so many factors which you cannot control. Who's doing it, different biases. But if you just watch like a VR, you're going to have the same experience every time. Think about it like when you go to the cinema, you're watching the exact same film that everyone else is. When you go to the theatre, you're not watching the same show because there'll be little differences and you can't control all the factors. Maybe someone's sick, maybe someone trips over. So maybe there's a bit of dodgy, that analogy, but you get the point, is that it's just more controlled. Increase interest, mimics real life. That is true because ultimately we want to see how these different ways of thinking are in real life scenarios. So what is it like when you're in a shopping centre? Not like what it is when you're in a sterile room. And new brain tests. So yeah, really interesting, everyone. Now here's just, I want to get a feel of the room. Which ones of you have tried VR? And which ones of you have not tried VR? No worries if not. Okay, some of you have, most of you have not. Now they are, this Christmas, I reckon all the lucky kiddos are going to get loads of VR this year. It's expensive, so maybe only the families, but still, I do think it's going to grow and grow. It is becoming accessible right now. Some of you have, some of you haven't. But if I was asked all of you who has a mobile phone, I would probably guess everyone. And we didn't. So these technologies, they do get more commonplace. But soon, maybe everyone could do this. Oh, Sam's from Australia. Good to meet you. You got up at an unreasonable hour today. Good to have you. So a quick overview of VR. It simulates real life for reliable tests. And like I said, it's getting better all the time. Graphics don't need to be 100%. Our brain is easily confused. If something moves around with us, our brain's absolutely. And if you don't believe me, ask yourself, what is reality? Let's not have like a crisis right now, but reality is just our interpretation of light around us. So we can trick it. Slowly builds focus skills. So VR is something that can be done gradually over time. There's no pressure to automatically improve straight away. It can handle distractions and task levels. So just like you have like easy, difficult, super difficult, you can change the settings in order to get a more tailored approach. It's more stable. So every time you use it, it's going to be the exact same as the time you used it before. And arguably, it might be better for diagnosis in general because it will be more fair, less bias. All right, great. So let's have a little look at what we might want to test in VR when it comes to brain activities. Brain activities is just a function that's going on. So first of all, we got attention. You can definitely test for attention in VR. So you can map where the eyes are going. If someone is getting distracted, that's very easy to spot. We can also map executive functionings, how we process, how long it takes, the delay, the methods we do it. In other scenarios, we can also do, we've already done attention. All right. The spinny wheel is dodged, to be honest. Impulsivity. If we say, so, okay, you need to wait a sec, and someone's like, there are lots of different things. Memory. What else have we got? We got cognitive inhibition. So essentially, there are lots of things that you can test. Just having a little smartwatch, you can test everything these days. And before you'd have to go and have individual assessments. Are they as accurate? Maybe not at the moment, but they are definitely going to be heading that way. Now, some of the tasks that we might be able to do is spatial working memory tasks. Now, obviously, this is a 2D version because I can't show you VR right now, but the way that this works is that it's object location memory. So classic, where you're like, oh yeah, I remember the location of that. And you can view it on the screen and recall positions. In VR, simply, it's just in a three-dimensional space. And why is that better? 3D is what real life is in. Real life isn't flat. So it just makes it more accurate to real life, so arguably better. Now, this is a really simple way in which we can use VR to kind of test things like working memory and spatial memory. This is a video which shows you an example. In VR, people memorize locations for accurate task and monitoring. Let's see if this works, because it's quite cool. It's an example of a real test that has been done. At the moment, okay, we've got a cabinet that is flying away from us for some reason, and we're on a little push bike. On here, pedaling towards it, and we see where it is. Oh, we went right through it. And the idea is, are you able to stop in time? Okay, in a second. Let's read the disclaimer first. This game will test your memory for where objects are located in space. You'll be moved down a virtual track with objects placed at particular spots, and your job is to press the button on the controller when you are at the object. You should try to remember where the objects are located along the tracks, because often the objects will be invisible. The closer you press the button to the object location, the more points you'll get. Ah, yes, so it is about spatial memory. And people say with dyspraxia and ADHD can often struggle with this. Let's see here. Are you able to stop before you hit the object? And again, this is way more realistic in VR than it would be hand. Okay, is there an option? Okay, this is the visible one. And you'd have to try to guess. See, this person slowed down where they thought they got to the area. Oh, something. Yeah, I don't think it would work for that. But yeah, so this test, if any of you have done like your theory test for driving, I imagine this is quite similar to that. Or when you're doing those tests to see if you're drunk and you have to like catch a ruler, similar to those. But again, a more immersive way. Now, studies have used VR for spatial memory in psychosis. What do you think they found? And I know before you say psychosis and ADHD, they're not the same. I know, I'm just doing what I've already got data on. So let's use psychosis as an example for this one. So when we use VR, what about the performance, finding targets quickly, accurate pointing and navigation, remembering sequences in space? And this was, again, just to see if we used VR, would we get better results than if we just did it like on a 2D paper or navigation? Okay, a lot of medium things. Let's see what the results were, or not. Okay, the idea is with here, there were benefits, and they did see improvements in spatial memory. And the reason is that sometimes when we do the tests we currently do, you can misdiagnose someone because it doesn't mimic real life. Where in a real life scenario, you actually may be better at something or you may be worse. So let's say in this task, if you're just doing it on paper, your result might be skewed either way. Another one is limits of executive functioning tests. So here we've got different tests where you have to match the, red, green, circle thing. And these tests are really common. So some of you may have heard of it before. This is called the Wisconsin card test. And this is often used with autism or ADHD. It's a very kind of flat task, and they try to see how your functioning skills are, how you're able to switch tasks and how quickly. So for example, if I said, all right, which one is a red circle? You'd be there, nice and simple. Which one is the red cross there? Which one is yellow cross? Which one is a square? I'm sure you've also done those tasks where you've got to go like red, blue, yellow, green, but actually the colors and the names don't quite match up. And it's about how quick your brain can switch between them. That's executive functioning. So what are the limits of these type of tests? One use only. Yeah, kind of. The more you use it, the better people get at it. So it becomes less accurate the more you use it. Unrealistic. Yeah, let's face it. This isn't real life. May overlook issues. Very much. Unfair, potentially for different reasons. Multi-aspects, it's too complex. Yeah, trying to explain it just now, I'm like, oh yeah, I remember. So there's a lot of things that we can all agree which aren't perfect with this. Well, you do these for fun. You can do them for fun. This is why, if you find it fun, you might actually do better at it. And if you get really bored with these activities, you might do worse at it. So you can see they're not a great way of diagnosing or understanding. But with VR, you can go super immersive. This is literally someone in a shopping center in VR. It was called VEGS. I think they're trying to like vegetables. I don't know. And it's a virtual grocery store, and it's measuring planning and decision making. Let's say you're going around and you have to pick the right brand of shampoo. If you're like me, I'm going to spend forever. I'm like, all right, what's in the ingredients? All right, how much is it per litre? Yeah, I'm like really spending forever. Or I'm like, do I go for the neutral one or the coconut one? And my brain is just, I'm done. Yeah, I'm done. But if you notice, this is the real life scenario of the Wisconsin test. It's about being able to switch tasks and make rapid decisions. So you can see why this is way better to do it in a virtual environment. It's also a safe environment because you get too much, you take it off. Yes, this would show ADHD. Yes, LaDonna, you agree. I think this would work as well. And yes, the graphics do not look amazing, but they don't need to. It measures planning, decision making, helps understand memory and thinking, especially in conditions like Alzheimer's and dementia. Just to test, these tests currently has been used in Alzheimer's and dementia, not ADHD. But you can see how it would also relate to ADHD. So there can be multiple uses, even if current studies have focused on one condition rather than the other. It wouldn't be ideal for me because there are no consequences of choosing the wrong shampoo. Maybe the game will be like, wrong is... I don't know if there is a wrong answer really in real life. And I think that's something, again, where in real life, nuances, the hell of other people with shopping trolleys. Yeah, Andy, I get you on that. I'm so distracted with trolleys. For some reason, even I still find them fun to play with. And I like ram into people. Anyway, how could ADHD benefit from VR? Many ways, as we've learned today. We've understood that it can help us understand what it is, attention issues like distracting and impulsivity, diagnose challenges. It's tough to measure and it checks biases. So for things which are more nuanced and look for micro details, VR might be able to track it. Like with our eye movements, it can be really exact. Current diagnosis methods are really varied and inconsistent. Genuinely, if you get diagnosed in one country and you go to another country, you may or may not have ADHD, depending where you go. And that could even happen in your own small town or from doctor to doctor. VR strategy, use VR for practice, consistent diagnosis. And this is the thing, so it's about monitoring people over time, not just basing them on that particular day. Maybe one day you're feeling really attentive and other days, not at all. But depending on when you get your assessment, that could completely change the results, where VR can be done over a longer period of time. But in your opinion, because obviously I've just been sharing mine, do you think ADHD would benefit from VR? Any opinion's fine, by the way. Disagree, agree, no opinion on the matter. Is this something where you think we should be putting more money and research into? Or do you think this is just a fad, something that's going to come and go? You can see the potential in it. It's not perfect at the moment, but it definitely seems like an improvement on our current methods in many different factors. Now, here's another scenario which is directly related to ADHD. Yes, finally something relevant. So we've got a virtual classroom. Let's face it, school sucks if you've got ADHD. It's really difficult. And this is able to test all the different skills and deficits and abilities in a realistic environment. So here we can simulate a classroom with typical elements. You've got your pictures, you've got children passing notes, you've got pens, you've got distractions. It's taking into a lot of factors. The purpose is to study attention and control distractions. So you maybe while your headsets, you are instructed to view the teacher and to focus on what she's saying. But if you move your head, the computer will be able to track that and it will know exactly when you get distracted, exactly what type of things distract you. And this might be able to make you more aware of yourself. It also might be able to make the teacher more aware and how they might be able to position their classroom. The results, was effective, cost-effective tool for attention assessments. So yeah, nice, cheap way of seeing how and when people may get distracted, rather than just say asking them verbal questions. Okay, we got, wouldn't an MRI be a better tool for diagnosis? I think VR is all about treatment. Sam? Yes, potentially, but money. MRI, very expensive. We did webinars previously where we talked about if every classroom had an MRI machine, we could do really tailored support for students. But the truth is, VR you can get for $250. That's in British pounds. But MRI, we're not going to be getting that under the Christmas tree this year. So you can see the challenges. So I just want to get a feel of the room. What are your thoughts on virtual classrooms with body tracking for attention assessments? Now, so the idea is that there'd be body trackers and exactly see where you move, how you move. Do you see this being good? Do you see this being bad? Are there any areas which are a bit problematic? Like, how would you feel about your child being monitored throughout the day? People who have diabetes will have trackers that will tell them when they've got low blood sugar. That's common practice. If you have ADHD, what about having a tracker which tells you how often you get distracted? So you can have a whole heap of data. Would that be great? Or would that be like too big brothery? It could help. Brilliant, would help teachers understand and pupils. I actually think it'd be really beneficial for the teachers as well, because they are in control of the classroom. If they know what area kids typically are lost at, that's when they can intervene. We've got kids love gaming, so yeah. Autists don't like eye contact, would be viewed as inattentive. Yeah, it's true, might not work for everyone, particularly if you have both conditions together. Personalized and intimate immediate feedback. Yeah, the teacher could literally change their plan in the moment. If it's short term, it's not like Big Brother. Yeah, so maybe you don't have it on all the time, but like for a day or two to see how you're monitoring. Useful if used by schools to support rather than blame children. Absolutely. I think it'd be really weird if they paid all this money just to blame students. Yes, good to identify positive things. If it's anything like the diabetes tracker, it might be too distracting. And that is another thing as well. If you've got a gadget or gizmo on you, let's face it, why aren't phones allowed in most classrooms? Because they're distracting. Having another, everyone's on it. It might actually make things a whole lot worse. Andy says, tricky as a lot of people get nausea. Me too, I get really sick with it. Now, I will say, the more we use it, the less sick you get. And I found overusing it over a course of a few weeks, I got less and less nauseous. Is that a word? Nauseous? But I do agree with you. There are going to be some issues. And for some people, having headsets on them is really claustrophobic. They would absolutely hate it. Oh, okay. Quiz time. Yeah, it's a Christmas quiz, but probably not the Christmas quiz you'd probably have at your local pub. This will be about science. I've done a few pub quizzes this year. Always good fun. I never win. Anyway, why is VR valuable for ADHD assessments? So which of these is the correct answer from what we spoke about today? Is it realistic controls? Is it the fun factor, cost saving, or reducing disorders? Oh, everyone's voted. I would say the key thing here is realistic control. So why is it valuable for ADHD assessments? While cost saving is a good thing, I would say that's why it's valuable for ADHD assessments. Probably the best thing is how realistic it is. It just mirrors real life more, so you're going to get more realistic results. But those others, I could say there are truth in them. It's definitely not about reducing disorders, though. That's completely wrong. Oh, Simona got it right. Good on you. All right, nice. Another go. Make sure everyone's playing who wants to. How can VR reduce bias in ADHD assessments? Bias removal. Reliable strategy for assessments. Cost cut. Cures ADHD. Yes, it's a reliable strategy for assessments. What makes it really good? It does not remove bias. I would love it. There's always going to be a bit of bias. That damn bias. But it is way more reliable and you can have a consistent approach. So you can't imagine if you had one doctor doing every assessment for ADHD, the waiting list would be horrendous. But if you got the same sort of software, it could be ruled out for anywhere. Is this the same question as the previous one? Do you know what, Sam? It is very similar, but a little bit different. I did think that as I was reading, I was like, a bit similar, but was still different. All right, 3 to 5. How is attention assessed in virtual classroom? We've got, how is attention assessed in the virtual classroom? Friends made? I don't know what that means. Forget about that one. Reaction time and error profile, social media time, grades. Yes, reaction time and error profile. It wouldn't assess your grades. At the moment, we do look, if you get poor grades, maybe it's something to look into. If someone's on social media all the time, probably going to be struggling with school. Oh, friends made, understood. So how easy is it to make friends? But no, it is that one. Okay, penultimate question. How is hyperactivity data gathered in the virtual classroom? Is it through questionnaires, teaching observations, body movement tracking, or seat leave counts? Yay! Body movement tracking. And this is very different from how we currently do it. Currently, we do it through questionnaires. Were you distracted in class? Yes or no? But by that point, time has passed. Teachers' observations. Again, there's a lot of bias. What a teacher might see as one shouldn't be distracted might be different to another one. Part of the reason we have the bias with male and female at the moment. And you could easily count every time a student gets up and leaves. But maybe they just have a really weak bladder. You don't know. But with body tracking, much more accurate. All right, now for the last one. How does ADHD impact executive functions? So in terms of how we make sense of the world, that kind of quick calculations. Does ADHD, does it enhance it? Does it have no effect? No effect? Does it impair it? Or is a change neutral? Yeah, impairs it. So ADHD is about the impairment of executive functioning, and that is something that is easily tested. All right, let's see how you all did. Okay. Oh, quite. Vroom, well done, Vroom. Congratulations. Santa's going to give you a special gift this year, and if he doesn't, it's not my fault, but I hope they do. Oh, and MZ, a very good second. Well done. Roland, a respectable third. And well done also to Hula Hoop, Carl Gosler, Elsa, Hustler, Zella, Cake. How could internationalized hyperactivity be measured with VR? Oh, internalized. Good question. I'm not sure. Quite common. Oh, well done, Vicky. Anyway, Fitbit, potentially. To finish up with, VR can measure ADHD focus better. When it comes to the focus part of ADHD, it's good. Now, we know ADHD has lots of different characteristics. I'm not saying VR is going to replace every single one of them, but what it does do better is with focus. VR is more accurate than traditional tests. It's able to monitor everything. Obviously, it's only as good as the coding, but people are pretty good at coding these days. VR simulates classroom for ADHD testing. It means you can do the test without having to actually disrupt a real classroom, but it's also way more realistic than just doing, say, the Wisconsin test or whatever. VR tracks hyperactivity with body movements. You can also track eye movement. You can even do like hands. You could pretty much track anything. It's cost-effective ADHD diagnosis, and it is a really big one here, is that even if it's not perfect, the fact it's more accessible means that more people ideally can get the support and the help that they need. Let's say if you don't quite meet the criteria for ADHD, but you still get easily distracted, the teacher could still implement changes based on your data, whereas if you didn't have a report at all, you may get completely missed. Or Andy says, Quest 3 has eye tracking. Perhaps there's a link with eye movements and internal hyperactivity. Do you know what, Andy? I've got the Quest 2 and stuff, and there really aren't that many apps at the moment around neurodiversity and kind of tracking, but I imagine they're going to just keep on making them. There are so many apps when it comes to other conditions and studying the body and design. So if there's not yet, I'm certain there will be. If any of you thought this was fun, I'd love to learn a little bit more. Here are some lovely research papers in order to dive a little bit deeper. Feel free to take a screenshot, or this will be on the video that we upload as well. So I won't stick on this one, but just so you know, there has been other research done. And if any of you want to take a bit of a deep dive, I'd recommend having a little look at this book. It's Virtual Reality Therapy for Anxiety Disorder. Again, not ADHD related because those books do not exist, as far as I'm aware, but you can see how ADHD and anxiety, they do go hand in hand, and you can see a lot of things of how it has been used for one condition and then see how it might pair to another one. So not an exact one-for-one, but still were very useful for the research of this. All right, we've done it. We've reached the end, everyone. Now, quick as always, if any of you think I have ADHD and I want support in the workplace, but I don't have a VR machine, get in contact. We can't give you a VR machine, but we might be able to support you in the workplace for assessments, and it's completely free. So go on our website, exceptionalindividuals.com, if you want to see what support might be available and free of charge. The next webinar, the first one of 2024, is Do I Have Autism? This is one of the first ones. We've done a similar to this before, but this is much more updated with more interesting information. And this is going to be looking at the characteristics and the traits that are associated to autism. This isn't about actually diagnosing you, but it is about for people to have a better understanding about the traits which people look for when diagnoses are done. Now, this isn't using VR. This is doing the conventional approach, but still, that is how things are done at the moment. So do give it a go. Thanks, everyone. Oh, such a cool imaginative session. Thanks, Anna. Always lovely to have you. And if any of you would love to kind of subscribe or to watch this video again, just go to our YouTube channel, Exceptional Individuals. You can click the link and you'll be able to see all our videos that are uploaded and able to watch again, which is always a fun thing to do. Now, here's our contact information. My name's Nat. That's nat@exceptionalindividuals.com if you want to message me directly. But I hope you all had an enjoyable time, learned some fun things, and hopefully see you again for next year. But thank you so much, everyone, for being a part of this year's webinars. I've absolutely loved delivering them. And a massive shout out to April for editing all the webinars. I genuinely couldn't do it without you. All right, everyone, have a lovely rest of your day and enjoy times with your family if you're able to. Nice. Thanks, everyone. All right. Season's greetings.